Clark would more than double her salary the next year.
It's funny seeing the amount of people that's about to make more money than Angel Reese. Angel Reese is punching air right now. Barbie is punching air between her new salary and nobody showing up to see her at Barbie Fest.
You want to know why Caitlin Clark just revealed a contract detail that makes Angel Reese's $1 million demand look ridiculous? Because this was never about opinions, hype, or social media noise. This was about a system the league built. A system Clark already unlocked, and a system Reese is still standing outside of, knocking like it's going to magically open for her.
Barbie is punching air between her new salary and nobody showing up to see her at Barbie Fest. Whoa! She's not happy at all. I gotta tell you, she's upset.
Here's what nobody bothered explaining properly. The WNBA didn't just raise salaries, they built a mechanism. It's called the EPIC clause, exceptional performance on initial contract. Sounds fancy, right? It's actually simple. Produce at an elite level early, get paid early. Don't produce, wait your turn. That's it. No politics, no favoritism, no popularity contest. And somehow, this is the part that keeps flying over people's heads when they talk about Reese.
The Indiana Fever need to do whatever they possibly can to make that happen with Caitlin Clark. You have a generational player, obviously the face of the WNBA. So whatever salaries you need to move around, whatever players you might need to part with to make sure that Caitlin Clark stays, and also to make sure that Caitlin Clark is your super max contract player in 2028.
Clark didn't wait around. She stepped into the league and immediately hit first team All-WNBA as a rookie. Not second team, not she's got potential. First team. That one achievement alone flipped a switch in her contract trajectory. The clause activated. The acceleration began. The system now treats her differently because she proved something at the highest level. That's how it's designed to work. You give the league elite production, the league gives you elite money faster.
Was a tremendous advantage. Having Clark and Boston locked up on rookie deals is now still an advantage because they're not free agents, they're not hitting the market. Though I think a lot of the star players are going to stay where they are, especially the big star players.
Now look at Reese. 2 full seasons. Not one All-WNBA selection, not second team, not third team, nothing. And then the same person turns around and says she deserves $1 million. Based on what exactly? This is where it stops being a debate and starts becoming uncomfortable, because the system is sitting right there in plain sight, and she's acting like it doesn't exist. Let's talk numbers, since that's what people love throwing around without context. Clark went from making around $78,000 to now sitting at over $500,000 going into the next phase of her contract. That's not a normal raise. That's a jump.
Third year in the WNBA, her third year on her rookie contract, so she's not eligible for anything yet. However, she will be getting a pay bump from the $78,000 that she was making to now over $500,000, which is really good for her, but
that's the system saying, "Endese, you met the criteria. Here's your fast track." And this isn't even the peak. She's lined up for a max contract around $1.3 million. Then a supermax pushing $1.4 million and beyond. This is already mapped out. She doesn't need to demand anything. It's coming. Reese? She moved from around $75,000 to roughly $350,000. That's a standard progression. That's what happens when you stay on the regular track. No acceleration, no shortcuts, no elite trigger. Just the baseline climb every player gets. So when people act like the gap between them is unfair, what they're really saying is they don't understand how the system works, because the system treated both players exactly the same. One triggered it, one didn't.
Angel Reese, $75K to $350K. That's still a pretty good little pay bump, I'd say. Spot Track even put in here.
And here's where it gets even worse for Reese. This isn't even just about Clark anymore. She's not just behind Clark. She's behind her own draft class. You've got players like Cameron Brink sitting near $500,000, Sonia Citron pushing into the $400 range, both ahead of Reese. Same timeline, same opportunity window, different results. So now what's the excuse? Because you can't point at Clark for that one. That's your own class passing you.
And the revenue growth, while great with Caitlin Clark, comparatively to every other year, has been better.
Draft position plays a role, sure. Reese came in as the 7th pick. Others came in higher. That gives them an initial advantage. But that only carries you so far. After that, performance takes over. That's when the epic clause becomes the separator. That's when the league stops caring where you were drafted and starts caring what you did on the court. And once again, Clark checks that box instantly. Reese doesn't. Let's talk about what production actually means here, because this is where the conversation usually gets twisted. Clark isn't just putting up numbers. She's changing how defenses play. She's forcing double coverage. She's creating open shots for teammates without even touching the ball. Her presence shifts the entire structure of a game. That's why she made all WNBA immediately. That's why the system recognized her immediately. It's not just stats, it's impact.
Unless Caitlin Clark is playing, she is still a great draw, and I will absolutely give you that, and sells out arenas.
Reese's numbers look loud on the surface. Rebounds, hustle, energy. But when you dig deeper, it gets messy. Shooting percentages that don't hold up. Layup conversion sitting around 31%. That's not a small issue. That's a major efficiency problem. A chunk of those rebounds come off her own missed shots. So now the stat that's supposed to prove dominance starts raising questions instead. And the selection committee sees that. They're not fooled by box scores. That's why the All-WNBA selections never came.
We'll see here. We'll see. Angel Reese, $1 for every missed shot and rebound. Nice. Ooh.
So when Reese goes public and says she deserves $1 million, it doesn't land as confidence. It lands as confusion, because the path to that money isn't hidden, it's right there. Earn All-WNBA. Trigger the clause. Move up the ladder. That's the formula. Clark followed it. Reese ignored it and then complained about the result. How does that make sense? And the funniest part in all of this? Clark didn't have to say anything. She didn't go on social media demanding a number. She didn't campaign for a raise. She just played at a level the system rewards. And now the system is doing exactly what it promised. That's the insane contract detail. It's not a secret clause. It's not a loophole. It's discipline meeting opportunity.
When they're able to put that offer on the table in front of A'ja Wilson and make her a Supermax contract player, they are going to do it. They were the first team to come out and say that they were going to do that, as they should. A'ja Wilson currently is the best player in the world. She absolutely deserves a Supermax contract. The Aces are claiming out loud, this is our franchise player. The Indiana Fever need to do whatever they possibly can to make that happen with Caitlin Clark. You have a generational player, obviously the face.
Meanwhile, Reese is out here treating the outcome like it's some kind of injustice. Like the league owes her something it hasn't earned yet. And that's where the gap between these two players really shows. One understands the game and the business behind it. The other is still arguing with the scoreboard.
Pay up, deserved. Why is Angel at the bottom? I don't know.
And this is just the beginning. Because right now, the gap sits around $178,000. That's already noticeable, but it's about to get a lot worse. Because Clark's number isn't stabilizing, it's accelerating. Every season she stays at this level, the gap stretches further. Meanwhile, Reese is stuck unless something dramatically changes on her end. Now here's where this whole thing completely falls apart for Angel Reese. Because up until now, you could at least pretend this was just about contracts. You could say, maybe she just wants to get paid more, maybe she's negotiating in public, maybe it's just noise. But once you step outside the salary sheet and look at what's happening around Caitlin Clark, the gap doesn't just grow, it explodes.
Caitlin, thank you for the incredible energy, the passion, and the historic impact you brought to the WNBA. You've lifted the entire league. We're proud to call you our sister. With love and respect, the players of the WNBA and
The league didn't just change because of a new agreement. The money didn't just appear out of nowhere. We're talking about a jump from a $250,000 max to a system where players are heading toward $1.4 million. Average salaries didn't just increase, They multiplied 5 times over. That kind of shift doesn't happen because executives suddenly felt generous. That happens when something forces the market to expand, and that something has a name. Clark walked into the league and immediately changed the demand curve. Ticket sales jumped. Arena attendance spiked. Broadcast numbers started moving in a way the league hadn't seen before. You've got analysts and commentators literally calling it a Caitlin Clark stimulus package. That's not even subtle. That's people openly admitting that one player is dragging the entire league into a new financial tier. And you've got players benefiting from raises across the board because of it.
Angel's getting $1 for every layup she misses. That's the bonus program.
Now let's talk about the part that really makes this comparison uncomfortable. The endorsement market. Because this is where the difference between hype and actual value gets exposed immediately. Clark didn't just sign deals. She signed conviction bets from the biggest brands in the world. We're talking about an 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike. Not a short-term test run. 8 years. That means they looked at her trajectory and said, this is a long-term asset. Then you've got Gatorade stepping in with a deal reportedly around $50 million, building an entire signature product line around her. That's not just endorsement money. That's product integration. That means her name is moving units at scale. That's measurable demand. That's something brands can track in real time. They don't do that for players who are just trending for a week. On top of that, you've got State Farm making a historic move, putting her at the center of national campaigns when they've never built that kind of platform around a female athlete before. And then Wilson Sporting Goods giving her a signature line, something they last did for Michael Jordan. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. Multiple industries looking at the same data and reaching the same conclusion.
Caitlin Clark from the logo!
You know, life would be easier if I could do everything from the logo.
Allow me to assist.
Now compare that to Reese. She had a deal with Reebok. It launched with energy. It had promotion behind it. And then what happened? The product didn't move. It sat. Discounts started showing up. Marketing slowed down. Then it went quiet. And silence in the endorsement world isn't neutral. Silence means the numbers didn't hit. Silence means the return wasn't there. That's the market, speaking without needing a press conference. So when Reese demands $1 million, she's not just ignoring the contract system, she's ignoring the market that's already evaluated her. That's what makes it hit harder, because you can argue with a league rule, you can complain about a contract structure, you can't argue with consumer behavior. People either buy into your brand or they don't. And right now, the difference between her and Clark in that area isn't small. It's massive.
What happened to Miss Angel Reese? She's all in Indiana during All-Star, and her Reebok campaign come to your track.
Then comes the part that really seals this whole situation. The demand itself. Reese goes public and says she deserves $1 million in base salary. No qualifiers, no context. Just a flat statement. And you have to sit there and ask, what mechanism is supposed to make that happen? Because the league already told you what that mechanism is. It's not social media posts, it's not public pressure, it's all WNBA selections. That's the gate. That's the only gate. Clark already walked through it. That's why her salary is climbing automatically. That's why her future earnings are already mapped out. She's not negotiating from emotion. She's operating within a system she already beat. Reese, on the other hand, is standing outside that system asking for the outcome without meeting the requirement. And the more you think about it, the more disconnected it sounds.
The Chicago Bravado once again got their ass kicked. Angel Reese was so bad last night, the announcers calling the game, they were laughing at her performance.
And here's where the future makes this even more brutal. Right now, the gap between them is noticeable, around $178,000. You can spin that. You can say it's not that big, but look at where this is going. Clark is projected to hit over $1.3 million, possibly pushing toward $1.7 million as the system continues to escalate. That's not speculation. That's based on how the clause works once it's triggered. Reese's trajectory doesn't move like that. Not without all WNBA, not without a major jump in performance. So the gap doesn't stay at 178,000, it stretches, it compounds, it becomes $1 million difference, then more. And at that point, the conversation isn't even about rivalry anymore. It's about two completely different tiers of player value. Meanwhile, teams are already preparing for Clark's rise. The Indiana Fever are looking at their roster and realizing they're going to have to restructure everything just to keep her long-term. That's what happens when you have a player whose value exceeds the system's current limits. You don't question paying her, you figure out how to afford her. That's the definition of a franchise player. Nobody is having that conversation about Reese. No team is sitting there trying to clear cap space because they're terrified of losing her at a supermax level. That tells you everything without anyone needing to say it out loud. The league shows you what it values by how it moves. And right now, it's moving around Clark. So when you put all of this together, the contract detail isn't just insane because of the numbers. It's insane because of what it represents. Clark didn't just get a raise. She positioned herself inside a system that guarantees exponential growth. Every season she performs, the system pushes her higher. Every accolade compounds the effect. It's a feedback loop she already activated. Reese, meanwhile, is stuck arguing with outcomes instead of fixing inputs. She's looking at the result and demanding it instead of understanding how it's produced. And until that changes, nothing about her situation will. The system won't bend. The market won't adjust out of sympathy. It's all based on what happens on the court. And that's the real reason this whole thing hits so hard. Because Clark didn't need to demand $1 million. She made herself inevitable for it. Reese is still asking for something the system is already giving to someone else. And every year, that gap is only going to get wider. And if you think that gap is just something analysts are talking about quietly, it's not. People are saying it out loud now. Fans, commentators, even people inside the basketball space are starting to treat this like it's already decided. Because once the numbers came out, once the clause got explained, once the contracts were visible, the debate stopped being emotional and started becoming mathematical. And math doesn't care about narratives. You've got people online literally joking that the entire league should be sending thank you cards to Caitlin Clark. That's how far this has gone. It sounds exaggerated until you actually look at what happened. Media rights deals climbing into the hundreds of millions. Attendance jumping, jerseys moving, broadcast slots getting more attention, and all of it aligning with one player entering the league and immediately dominating the conversation. At that point, it stops sounding like a joke and starts sounding like a summary. And then you look at the reaction to Angel Reese's situation, and it's the complete opposite tone. Instead of people asking how to build around her, they're asking why she's behind players from her own draft class. That's not a small shift. That's a complete change in perception. Because once players like Cameron Brink and Sonia Citron are sitting above you financially, the argument can't be about one rivalry anymore. It becomes a pattern. And people notice patterns fast. You even have conversations popping up where people are breaking down Reese's stats in ways they didn't before. Not just counting rebounds, but asking where those rebounds come from. Not just looking at scoring totals, but asking how efficient those points actually are. That kind of scrutiny only shows up when the narrative starts slipping. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. Every number gets questioned. Every performance gets reevaluated. Meanwhile, Clark is getting the opposite treatment. Her numbers aren't just being read, they're being translated into impact. Analysts are talking about spacing, defensive gravity, how her presence changes entire game plans. You've got teammates benefiting statistically just by sharing the floor with her. That's the kind of influence that doesn't always show up in a box score, but it shows up everywhere else. Coaches see it, opponents feel it, and most importantly, the league rewards it. There's also a behavioral side to this that people are starting to bring up more. How players handle pressure, how they respond to setbacks, how they carry themselves when things don't go their way. Clark has been consistent there. She doesn't jump into every public argument. She doesn't turn every comparison into a statement. She just plays, produces, and lets the results speak. That consistency matters more than people think, especially when brands and teams are deciding who to invest in long term. Reese has taken a different route. More vocal, more reactive, more willing to turn things into public moments. That can work if the performance backs it up. If it doesn't, it starts working against you. And that's what people are pointing out now. It's not just what you say, it's when you say it and what your numbers look like when you say it. Timing matters. Context matters. And right now, the context isn't helping her. You're also seeing comparisons that go beyond just these two players. People are bringing up names like Aja Wilson as the benchmark for what a true Supermax player looks like. MVP-level production, consistency over multiple seasons, clear dominance. That's the standard. That's the level the system is built around. And when you put Clark on a trajectory that's already pointing toward that tier, it makes her rise look even more legitimate. Another thing people keep bringing up is how teams are reacting behind the scenes. You don't hear leaks about teams scrambling to secure Reese long-term at max levels. You do hear that about Clark. You hear about roster decisions, cap space planning, future projections all revolving around her. That's not media hype. That's organizational behavior. Teams don't restructure themselves for players they don't see as foundational. So when Reese throws out a number like 1 million, people aren't just comparing her to Clark anymore. They're comparing her to that standard. And that's where the disconnect becomes obvious. Because that number isn't just a salary, it's a reflection of where you stand in the league hierarchy. And right now, she's not in that tier. Not statistically, not impact-wise, not contractually.